Welcome to Slumpbusters. We are officially in the NFL offseason, which means it's time to transition to some NBA talk. We're bringing on some fantastic guests representing each and every team around the NBA. And today we are joined by Mo Murphy, the VP of the Off the Ball Network. You probably heard Chris LeBron on our show before. He is also the host of UpnFlamez, which I guess is very appropriate considering we're here talking about the Miami Heat. Of course, Juju Talk Sports, Kyle Ledbetter, my co-host. First question for you is the Miami Heat. They are currently, as of today, as of recording here on Wednesday, February 16th, are the number one team in the Eastern Conference. But if you look at the Vegas odds, they have the sixth best odds to win the title, and they are the fourth best odds just out of the Eastern Conference behind the Bucks, Nets, and 76ers. Are we sleeping on the Heat? Are we underrating the Heat? What am I missing about the Heat this season?
So to be honest, I think that sounds about right. They're first in the East. I don't think they're the best team in the East, though. And I think the problem with Miami, and I think why everybody, I guess you could say they're underrated a little bit. They're flying under the radar more than we've typically seen a one seed fly under the radar. They don't have that superstar. Like they have Jimmy Butler, who's an all-star player. They have Bam Adebayo, who when healthy is an all-star player. They have Kyle Lowery, a former all-star. But they don't have that top 10 player that has to be talked about all the time, a guy that could literally take the game over by himself and win you a series. We've seen Kevin Durant do it. We've seen Giannis do it. You know, even the Lakers get talked about so much because they still have LeBron James and Anthony Davis. So I think the problem with the Miami Heat is like they fly under the radar because they play that style of basketball that everybody doesn't love and appreciate now. It's not about scoring 120 points and, you know, hitting 20, 25 threes a game. It's grit, grind, and it's just you have a bunch of guys scoring. You'll have 6, 7 guys in a win in double digits, but nothing's impressive. You don't really have a lot of guys scoring 40-point nights. You've had Tyler Herro have a couple 30. Jimmy Butler will have a 30-point here or there. But I think it's the excitement around Miami Heat is why they are where they are. And I think even coming into the playoffs, not having that superstar and what the 5 other teams ahead is, like you said, Brooklyn, Philly. Now they have Harden and Embiid. Brooklyn has Kyrie, KD, and soon to be Ben Simmons. And then Giannis, they're here defending their crown. He is a true superstar in the league, arguably the best player in the league. So I think when talking about the Miami Heat, I think that becomes the problem. And they're almost slept on the same way Phoenix was slept on last year until they finally proved themselves. Now they've jumped in to be the best team in the league. And I'm sure they're one of the other 2 teams, them and Golden State. I would imagine are the 2 teams out west that have better odds than the Miami Heat to win the championship.
Well, you mentioned the proving yourself part of it, and the Heat kind of did some of that 2 years ago in the bubble. I know it was a bit of a different team than the one that's constructed now, but you mentioned the Bucks a second ago. Like that bubble year, yes, Giannis got hurt in Game 3. They still took down the Bucks then. Last year, the Bucks knocked them out. The Bucks are, for my money, the best team in the Eastern Conference at this point. So in a possible playoff deep matchup between the Heat and the Bucks, how do you feel about the 2022 version of the Heat with Tyler Herro putting up 20 a game, with Jimmy putting up 24 a game? How much confidence do you have this year relative to 2 years ago or last year going up against Giannis and them boys in Milwaukee?
You know, in the bubble year, I predicted prior to even going into the bubble that the Heat is the one team the Bucks don't want to face if they're trying to win a championship. You just seen it every time they played, like the Heat got the best of them. They match up well. This year, I think if they play, I don't know who will win. I think that's a 7-game series. I think the Heat, you know, they have a chip on their shoulder about how Milwaukee basically blew them out the water, you know, last year where they went in 5, but it was a quick 5. It was like, you know, we were supposed to steal a couple. And then it just, after we didn't win the first one, it was just downhill from there. So I think the Heat will have a chip on their shoulder. They have that guy they needed in Kyle Lowery. I think that they were missing. Tyler Herro has gotten a lot better, arguably probably going to win 6th man of the year. So I think that series goes 7. Who wins? You know, I'm going to just say I think Miami wins in 7 just because I'm not going to pick against my team. But I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I don't want to see Milwaukee in the first round. Like, I would hate for that to fall and be a 4 or 5 matchup because I think this Heat could make some noise. But I think those are 2 teams. They don't want to see each other until the conference finals if both of them have championship aspirations.
This past free agent class wasn't the most exciting. It wasn't littered with all pros like past free agent classes, but it did have a multi-time former all-star in Kyle Lowery, which went to the Miami Heat. Can you talk about what Lowry's brought to this team and the effect he's had on the roster?
He's brought everything we needed. Essentially, we needed a guy who still could get it done. He's not, you know, he's been in and out of the lineup. He's been injured. COVID had played a factor, especially early on in the season. But I think as we ramp up in the second half, you'll really see his value as you've seen throughout the season. I mean, there were points at times where we were playing without Lowry, Butler, Bam and PJ Tucker, and then sprinkle in some Tyler Herro might miss some time. But he's been that point guard that Dragic was for the team. But I think at this point in both of their careers, Kyle Lowry is a better player than Goran Dragic. And so he's been that and actually can impose that in the starting lineup, as opposed to Goran Dragic was the guy, he ran the second unit. So I think you just got a better version of Goran Dragic. And Goran Dragic was a guy who, for the past couple of years, to me, was an X factor in why the Miami Heat were so good. And I think you're really seeing that with Kyle Lowry, his immediate impact. And he wasn't a guy that you had to figure out how is he going to fit in the system. Like, he's a guy, he plays defense. He doesn't need 20 shots a game. He doesn't need to score 30 points to have impact on the court. He was a guy we knew we could depend on 12 to 14 points, 6 to 7 assists, and play hard on both ends of the floor. And you've seen that consistently when he was on the floor. So I think he's done everything asked of him to do. And that's all you wanted from Kyle Lowry.
I wanted to circle back around to something you said before about Tyler Herro, because Tyler Herro is kind of a shoe-in for sixth man of the year. Like, it's pretty much a given at this point. He almost made the all-star team while coming off the bench for the Miami Heat. So it's been a bit of a wild ride with Tyler Herro, going from being 19 years old and putting up 38 and 10 to knock out the Celtics in the bubble a couple of years ago, to last year kind of losing his place a bit in the lineup and with a team that kind of flamed out. So talk a little bit about Tyler Herro and how, you know, the reconstruction of the Heat over this last offseason has helped him as a player and his development.
Well, the key thing that he said, you know, was the problem with last season is there was no off season. Essentially, would they have 6-7 weeks off going from the bubble year into last season? And so he didn't really have time to develop. He didn't have time to put in that work. So it was like he was going from where he ended, and that was going to be the best version of himself, trying to get better throughout the season. They were worn down a lot. Injuries played a factor throughout the regular season for the Miami Heat last year as well. You saw Jimmy Butler miss a lot of time. Herro had missed some games. So I think he never had a true chance to really just perfect his craft, elevate from his rookie year and how he played in the bubble. So when he said that, I'm like, it made a lot of sense. And then you see, like, he has a full off season. Everything he said is coming to fruition now. He had a full off season, was able to put the time in the gym, work. And now, like you said, like, you're seeing a guy, he'd be a starter on a lot of teams. He's playing that modern day Manu Ginobili role for the Miami Heat. And we know how valuable Manu Ginobili was for that Spurs dynasty. So I think Tyler Herro plays that same type of importance. Obviously, you hear that and people are like, oh, no, he's nowhere near Manu Ginobili. But when you look at his role in the modern day, like, he's the guy, he could give us 30 off the bench. We don't need it. We need about 18 to 20 points. He's given us everything we've needed and then some. And so I think, you know, for him to even win sixth man of the year, like, I think it's about the time he enters that conversation and wins that award to validate everything that he's done from year 2 to year 3.
As we all know, it's the 75th anniversary year for the NBA, and there is a top 15 head coaches that got announced just a few weeks ago, which included head coach Erik Spoelstra. Now, I'll admit, I don't know the entire history of the NBA as far as every coach top to bottom, but to hear a more modern coach get represented on the top 15 caught me a little off guard. So what do you think about Spoelstra's place in NBA history?
I was surprised that he made that list. And it's not that I don't think he deserves it. I just was surprised that he got that kind of recognition. You know, when he first joined the Miami Heat, he really got no credit for winning championships because he had LeBron James. So that was like a given. He did what he was supposed to do. He went to the finals 4 times. Like, this is a coach who in his career has been to the finals 5 times, once without LeBron James. But then you saw with the Miami Heat, I think it spoke to everything with Coach Spoelstra is the Miami Heat didn't fold when LeBron left. We've seen every other organization when LeBron leaves, like, they fall. They're one of the worst teams in the league. Miami was able to stay afloat, have a couple playoff appearances, and then the player development aspect of the Miami Heat, like, Coach Spo has everything to do with that. They get a bunch of undrafted second round guys or guys that weren't highly touted, like Tyler Herro or even Bam Adebayo, and they're kind of head scratching picks where they pick them at the end of the lottery. And you're like, I had them late first, early second round. And then a lot of the undrafted guys, Max Strus, you know, for example, you see all these guys and you're like, it's player development. And that's Coach Spo. He created a culture in Miami. And obviously it was started from Pat Riley, but he was able to maintain that culture and to do what he's done, make another finals without LeBron James, multiple playoff appearances with an aging D Wade. Chris Bosh had retired. So everything that he's done since he took over in 2011 has been nothing short of great. Like, he's been arguably the best coach of this decade outside of Greg Popovich. Like, you know, that's the all-time, that's probably the greatest coach of all time. He's been the second best coach of this decade consistently from what he's putting out, from winning championships, making championship appearances. Like there were 2 years, I think, in this decade that the Miami Heat didn't make the playoffs. That's a testament to a head coach, a guy who's been there for 10 years. It's a steady organization. So for all that, especially now where we see coaches get fired left and right, one losing season, they're on the hot seat. They don't win a playoff series and compete for a championship. The second year they're gone. So for him to maintain everything in Heat culture, even after LeBron left, I think he finally got the recognition that he deserved.
Oh, you mentioned Heat culture in there, and the embodiment of Heat culture has kind of become Jimmy Butler, in addition to, I guess, more of like the workout grind set idea of Heat culture. Because Heat culture is also, they take Bam Adebayo at pick 14 and turn him into an all-star, and Herro at 13 and make him as great as he is, and Strus and Duncan Robinson being undrafted guys, and Kendrick Nunn being second in Rookie of the Year. So I guess like on the Heat culture side, there's that, but then there's also the Jimmy Butler idea of, yeah, he's not regarded as one of the 5 to 10 best players in the NBA. Like he's not going to get MVP considerations, but we all kind of believe in Jimmy Butler as like the leader of the team, the only all-star on the team, as why we think the Heat could maybe make a run to the finals this year.
Yeah. I mean, when Jimmy was thought to go to Miami, I said it's a perfect fit. Like for what they do, how they play, he would be the perfect guy. He doesn't play around. He gets in the gym. He's first one in, last one out. Everybody's talked about his work ethic, but even like he brought a different type of attitude, because there's a lot of guys, they're grit and grind. We get guys who from nothing have no expectations. And so you get a guy who also came out of Marquette, same cloth as D-Wade, was real, got real close to Dwayne Wade when they were in Chicago. It kind of got his approval. Well, like, man, I've always had my eye on Miami. I wanted to play there. He preferably wanted to play when D-Wade was actually there, but to be his successor, it just made perfect sense. Like they kind of come from nothing, got it out the mud in college, made a name for themselves in college. So for Jimmy to finally find his way to Miami and be the leader, and I think that's the problem with maybe why people don't buy in, because people don't think like a Jimmy Butler led team could win a championship. Like if he's the best player on your team, do you really have a real shot at a championship? But he has showed you they've gotten there. Whether they benefited from the bubble or not, I am on the side that they benefited from the whole setting of the bubble. They were a bad away team, but even still, he makes other guys believe as well. As much as he's been, painted as a bad teammate, like he's made all these other guys believe. And I think his attitude, his work ethic has passed on to everybody else. And he's just a guy, when back against the wall, he makes everyone believe. And that's why I think he fit perfect. So when we were looking to get him, I was like, well, Jimmy Butler to Miami makes the most sense of any free agents that we've tried to get.
I've said it from day one. Jimmy Butler is like my favorite player that's not on the Boston Celtics roster. But hats off to Mo Murphy for joining us on the Slumpbuster today. Thank you, my friend. UpnFlamez, as I mentioned, VP of Off the Ball Network. Any last words before you head out, Mo?
No, I appreciate y'all for having me on, bro. We'll have to do this again, and I have to get y'all on so we can do a basketball related show. Y'all are jumping deep into basketball, so we'll do this, put it on Dash Radio, and get some more audience on y'all as well. Have my people listen to y'all, and maybe we could create this as a friendship doing podcast. So I appreciate y'all.
Yes, sir. Sounds great. All right, from Juju Talk Sports, Kyle Ledbetter. Stay safe, happy, and healthy. We will see you next time.